Let's talk about that Alamo Bowl. And on the stream, we'll try to get your comments in. Give us your three-word definition of the joy you experienced watching the Alamo Bowl while we talk about it. And as they come in, we'll try and get as many mentioned on the air as we can and on our podcast.
Mariko Hedquist says, hey, huge win versus Colorado. I loved how down the D and special teams were.
Yeah.
Number one priority is to retain Jay Hill, K-Pop, and Justin Anna. Done.
Right.
They just re-signed Jay. He's fine. So and
K-Pop and Anna, those guys aren't going anywhere.
Yeah, not planning on going anywhere. So
when this is a place you want to be at, it's okay to stay.
Yeah.
You know, unless sometimes offers come where you go, you know what, I'm taking that.
Yeah.
But a lot of times they're just like, man, you know, I kind of like where I work, where I live. And we don't have the TV numbers yet, Glenn, from the Philippines. And as soon as we do, we'll pass them on. We're probably not going to get them tonight, but I'll tell you what it's going to be. It's going to be the biggest, most watched BYU sporting event in the history of the school.
Yep. Saturday
night at the Alamo Bowl. You know, previous it was 3.7 for BYU Washington in 2013 at the Fight Hunger Bowl.
Right.
This is going to blow past that one.
Well,
way past, and thank Colorado for that. They got a draw.
I did feel bad for the announcers because the announcers came into the game with this entire prep, and you know I've been there where you prep for what you think is going to happen, but you owe it to yourself to prep for if the opposite happens, right? And it seemed to me like they had such.
We do that. We have to do that.
Yeah, it seems to me like they had such confidence that Colorado was going to win this game and that the stars were going to really shine, that all the elements that they planned for the show were around those guys. And when BYU came out and just literally, it's like they took them behind is that old saying? I took them behind the woodshed and they just beat the crap out of them, right? From the first minute of the game on. Like Colorado was never in it. And I think they were dumbfounded. They didn't have enough to talk about with BYU, and by golly, they were going to get the material they had prepared on Colorado.
Yeah, they did. All right, here's some 3-word responses from Joel. Still smiling today.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Nice, Joel. That kicks us off. That's a good one. And Mariko, happy, excited, elated.
Yeah, those are good words. Good words. And they're all good stuff.
36-14, BYU wins the Alamo Bowl. They finished 11-2, 9 Power 4 wins. That's the most in program history. Number 17 in the college football rankings today. They should finish in the top 15. They're going to move ahead of Miami, who got beat in front of them.
Yeah, do they even do one this week, or do they wait till after?
I think they wait.
Yeah.
I think there's just one more, and that's at the end. And then the next one we see is in August when it's time to reboot. But if you're in the top 15 to finish here with as many guys you have coming back, you should be in the top 20 going into next season. And that's the difference between BYU being, what were they, 52 this year?
Yeah.
Climbed as high as 6. But when you start in the teens, even 15, 14, when you start there and then you win your first 3 games or whatever, you stay there.
Yeah. Look, Penn State's the perfect example of this. And I like Ruth's 3 words, wow, wow, and all capitals, wow, right?
So let's talk about what we liked in that game as we look forward to your 3-word descriptions of how you felt about that one, and we'll share it with everybody on our podcast and live stream. Defensively, we start there because they were so good. Hold Colorado to 14 points. They came in averaging 34.
Yeah, when you hold a team with stars on the offensive side, like Colorado has, to 20 points below their season average. Like I agree with Ruth on that one. Wow, wow, wow. That was a defensive performance for the ages. And then they held Colorado to 210 yards of total offense and a total of 2 yards rushing. Now, mind you, there's like 46 yards in sacks. But still, they could not get the run game going at all, and that just put so much pressure on Shedeur Sanders. They sacked him 4 times in this game.
Yeah, and they were, you know what, they were glorious. Yeah. Taggart came in and dropped him and set the tone, and then they just came after him.
And then they intercepted him twice. That's due to pressure, in my opinion. Evan Johnson had a pick, Isaiah Glasker. That's 22 interceptions this season. BYU led the nation in interceptions with 22. That's crazy. And a lot of it is because of pressure. And BYU didn't rack up a bazillion sacks, but they were always in the face of the quarterback. They played a bunch of quarterbacks that get the ball out if they get pressure and don't get sacked. But it resulted, sometimes you and I were talking to Brian Logan the other day, and he's like, I would much rather have a team that pressures the quarterback and they throw up picks, because that's more game-changing than sacks. So if you had to pick one or the other, would you rather have 22 picks or lead the nation in sacks?
22 picks gets you the ball.
Me too. Yeah. I want the ball, and that's who BYU was this year. And
Okay, hang on. We got to keep up on these.
Yeah, you got to keep up.
Greg's got elation, domination, exhilaration. That's a good one.
Yeah.
What's Weston got?
Let's go here. Weston says future looks awesome.
Those are his 3 words.
Paul Lacey says special teams, special.
Here, how about Colorado didn't win?
That's a good one.
There's 3.
Glenn says I was most impressed with the tackling. So his is 1 word, tackling.
So Biff says Colorado didn't win. Ryan's got they found out.
Yeah, they did. Remember when Klein, what was that saying? They about to find out.
They don't know. They about to find out.
They don't know what they about to find out, is what Kalani would say.
That was so good.
What I love is Gary Anderson mentioned in a post game to some of the media that Colorado had 20 plays in the first half, and BYU gave him 17 different looks pre-snap on 20 snaps. So they only repeated a pre-snap alignment 3 times in the entire first half. Colorado didn't know where anybody was, where they were coming from, what they were going to do. BYU was unbelievably well prepared in that football game, and it showed out on the field.
Special teams, let's talk about that for a moment. Parker Kingston returns a punt for a touchdown. He almost got another one. He was fantastic. And did you notice how Colorado was so poor on their punt coverage? Yeah. They weren't anywhere near Parker. And when you get a guy a chance to make 3 or 4 steps, man, he can burn you, and he burned them.
You got to give BYU credit. They're jammers. So there's gunners on the offense, the guys that run down, the first 2 guys that run down and try to get there as quick as they can. And then on defense, you put some guys that we call jammers out there that are their responsibility is to block the gunners, which isn't an easy thing to do in the open field because they have 2-way go anywhere they want to go. BYU's jammers did a phenomenal job in this game and allowed Parker to catch the ball cleanly, and he did great things. And how about an onside kick executed to perfection? Will Ferrin kicks it perfect. Ethan Slade catches it on the fly, and they converted an onside kick.
You know, some of their stuff they did didn't work. But what I loved is it was a bowl game, and they came to win. They're going to try everything. Yeah. Bohannon had a handoff, and he turned into a pass. He threw a pick, but he did it. Kingston had a ball. He ran to his left, and tight end's wide open. He throws it down there, and he drops it.
Should have been a touch.
But they tried it. I mean, they tried everything.
And so the defense was even off balance a little bit. BYU had some opportunities to score that they blew.
Yeah.
This should have been. Guys, the game wasn't as close as the score.
So it could have been 50 to nothing.
BYU dominated, and it was pretty fun. So, Will Ferrin, what can we say more about Will Ferrin?
The best thing is he's a junior.
He's the best kicker in the country, period. His mentality, his range, his accuracy. How many in a row?
16.
16 field goals in a row. 24 out of 27.
Now think about that for a second. 16. Some were in the wind. Somewhere in the freezing cold, somewhere with the game on the line in Salt Lake City. Both 2 were from 50-some yards in the Alamo Bowl on national TV. It just drilled all of them.
I can't remember which NFL game I was watching last night, but to win the game, it was a 54-yard field goal, and it came up 5 yards short.
And it could have put the Falcons in the playoffs, or at least in the hunt still, and instead.
And if that was Will Ferrin, not only would it have been good, it would have been 3/4 of the way up the net.
Yeah, let's not tell anybody because we need him back.
We need him one more year. We need him another year. He's the best kicker in America, and he is former Davis Dart. Let's never forget he's a former Davis Dart, where my kids all went to school.
Let's talk about the offense. 180 yards rushing. We're talking about what we like right now, and we'll talk about what we didn't like.
4.3 yards a carry.
And some of they were a little bit above that, and then the last couple of drives they got conservative, and then whenever you put a knee down, you lose a few yards, and sometimes that affects your average. But 4.3, LJ had 17 carries for 93 yards and 2 touchdowns. Sione Moa had 4 for 25 and a touchdown, and BYU was able to do. Remember last week we were talking about keys to the game, and what Kansas did to Colorado is they ran the ball, they controlled time of possession, they forced turnovers. They didn't turn it over as much as BYU did, but the recipe was there, and time of possession, BYU dominated.
Yeah, 11. They almost had, think about it, a quarter is 15 minutes. They had the ball 11 minutes and 52 seconds more than Colorado in that game. That is something. Here's the thing that is also, we look at these numbers, the 210 yards of total offense and 2 yards rushing for Colorado. Keep in mind in the last drive of the game for Colorado where they went down and scored, BYU had 2s and 3s in the game. And Kalani's philosophy, right or wrong, I like it because Kalani's philosophy is this. I have to develop young guys. Jay Hill believes that. Aaron Roderick believes that. So when the game is in hand, we're going to put guys out there And they're going to make plays, and they're going to make mistakes, and they're going to learn from those mistakes. And when it's their turn to play next year or the year after, they're going to be ready to go. And if we never play them and we never give them a chance to make a mistake, and we only play our starters, we're not going to develop ourselves for the future. And that's been his philosophy all along. People are like, oh, he takes his foot off the gas, or he's too kind to the other team.
You know, and we've complained about that.
Yeah, we're like, scores
Style
matter,
points,
right? Style
yeah.
points for college football playoff.
Yeah.
And so keep in mind that 80 yards of the 210 they had came in that last drive when BYU was letting their guys get experience. And Colorado still had all of their starters in the game.
Yep.
And to Deion's credit, he said that Shadur and Travis were going to play.
They played.
He played them the whole game.
That surprised us.
Yeah, it really surprised us. Because Miami's quarterback went out and played in the first half.
Yeah.
And then sat down in a game that was tight. And then Iowa State ends up winning in the last seconds of that game. That is not what Colorado did. Tremendous respect for Deion for having his kids play.
And it was gutsy, but they had insurance policies, which might be the new way of dealing with that kind of stuff.
Yep.
But yeah, it was good too, because then ABC wouldn't have had anything to talk about if those two guys came out of the game.
Yeah,
be like a silent movie.
Yeah, just watch the game. Just watch the game. Natural sound. And when Deion Sanders after the game says, "If I'm going to get my, what do you say? We got our butts beat." He goes, "I'm going to get my butt beat. I want it to be by that guy because I love the guy and I respect the guy." Yeah. And the way he coaches and the way he teaches.
Here's what we didn't like. We didn't like the 3 interceptions. 2 from Retzlaff, 1 from Bohannon. Jake struggled, 12 of 21, 2 picks, 151 yards. The good news is Colorado didn't score any points on BYU's turnovers.
Right.
And BYU scored 10 on theirs.
Yeah.
So the mistakes prevented a blowout, even worse, but it didn't hurt BYU.
Well, think about this. One of BYU's mistakes gave Colorado a really short field. Mm-hmm. And they got the ball down inside the 10. And what did BYU do? They sacked the quarterback for a 25-yard loss and put him out of field goal range, and they missed a field goal. So they didn't even give up points on a deep turnover. So that credit BYU's defense for that. And BYU's offense, even though they made some mistakes and gave away points by not capitalizing, like drop ball on that wide receiver pass by the tight end on that one, and the interception by Bohannon that if it's thrown a little deeper is probably a touchdown. These are points that BYU left on the board. In spite of that, the offense seemed to have things in hand. They were winning the line of scrimmage and running the football and possessing the ball.
We only saw, did we see 1 punt?
Yeah, and it's crazy. We're looking at this game and going, oh, BYU won by 20 and they scored in the 30s. We go, but they should have scored in the mid 40s or 50. Which is crazy. It's crazy that I'm even saying that.
It's because that's how we think. That's how we think.
Yeah.
But that's how fans think. Like, and it's so hard sometimes to just stop and live in the moment. We've talked about it a lot, encouraging folks, especially with all that's going on, is just enjoy this. This has been a special 2024.
Adam Streeter says, I don't know that the shuffle pass into was on Jake. Interception was on Jake. No. I'm excited for Jake's opportunity to get even better than this, obviously. We were talking about that after the game. It's like, it is on Jake, but that's the kind of play, and he hasn't had a play like that. That's the kind of play that you make that mistake once and then you don't ever make it again. Because you teach the quarterback, when you run a shuffle pass, remember in your mind, it's a pass, even though it's behind the line of scrimmage. You don't have to try to complete it. If you come out and he's got guys around him, throw it right at his feet into the ground.
Yeah.
Just throw it right at his feet. It's just an incomplete. And there's a receiver in the area, so it's not grounding. Just go back to the line of scrimmage and play the next play. I guarantee you the next time they have a shuffle pass where it's all crowded in there, he just throws the ball at the guy's feet. Because Jake does tend to learn from the mistakes that he makes. He's getting better. If he makes as much progress from last year to this year and then do it again now from this year until next, he'll be an All-American quarterback next year.
Cougars going to be tough to beat. Yeah. Well, we didn't like the penalties, 9 for 80 yards. A couple of those helped Colorado move down the field for their they only scored twice, and penalties helped them. Seemed like both times.
Two
and we
15-yarders on that one score, on the real scoring drive. Right?
And we didn't like that. We're sensitive to game announcers because we know how hard it is to call games.
We usually don't like to pick on
them. But the angst was widespread, and so we didn't like that either. We thought they could have been, they could have played that game closer to the 50. and stayed in the middle. It's hard to do sometimes, but those two are really good announcers. It just seemed like the game plan, and sometimes it's the producer's plan, sometimes it's everyone else's plan. The game plan was this is about Dion and those two kids, and that's it. Everybody else is just getting in the way, and so that's kind of how it rolled out.
And I think we know that you can't always blame the announcers, because sometimes there's a storyline that a producer's going, this is what everybody wants to see. This is what we're covering. We've produced all of these elements for this on these guys, right? And by the way, Michael Zimmerman is saying smile, smile, smile. That's his 3 words. But and so what's happening is you're even in your own mind going, man, we need to start talking more about BYU. And in your headset, the producer's saying, hey, we're going to show this graphic on Shedeur. And so the graphic comes up and you just have to go through the graphic, right? Or they put something else up about the Heisman Trophy. And you just kind of cover what the producer's putting out there. So part of the blame could be the producers had an agenda that they were certain to get in. Now
let's revisit Blaine's keys to beating the Buffaloes. As you know, he rolls them out the week before every game. And then we like to hold him accountable. As Russell says, shock, awe, wonder. That's his 3 words.
Nice.
Good to have you in from Covina, California. So, number 1, you said finish drives with touchdowns.
And they had 3 TDs and 3 field goals. And the 3 field goals were long. I felt like you get inside the 20, you got to score, which they pretty much did in this ball game. So I'm going to give them a single plus on that one.
Okay. Number 2, as let's see, Nick says game of games, and Jeff says substance over bling.
Oh, there you go.
And that's a nice one. Good job, Jeff. Number 2, you said limit big plays over the top. They only had 2 big plays all game.
Yeah, Travis Hunter. And here's the one thing that I love. After the one big play, which was a 56-yard play where he made people look ridiculous, BYU did run him down and get him out of bounds, and guess what? They didn't score.
Nope.
They had 2 deep incursions into BYU's territory. The BYU turned him away, which I thought was great. So, and then he did get one over the top where he scored. And so, you know what? When you're playing against Travis Hunter, and you really only give up, because the one where they tackled him and turned him back doesn't count. So they had 1 play over the top from a guy that gets 2 or 3 a game.
And it really wasn't over the top, right?
Yeah,
they hit him and then he took off and ran.
He looked amazing on that play.
Yeah, he was good. Mark says, remember the Alamo. Nice.
Yeah, we're giving a plus.
You give a plus on that. And then number 3, he said win the turnover margin. That was 3-2 Colorado. BYU turned it over 3.
But remember, BYU, they don't count the onside kick as a turnover.
Right.
So it was 3-3 in my mind.
In your mind because of the onside?
And so I'm just giving them a wash on that one.
Okay, give it a wash. And they didn't score on their turnovers.
No, yeah.
So that's
we're giving them a wash.
There.
So they're 2 pluses and a wash. It's interesting. I saw a lot of articles and things independent of BYU where they're going, well, it's pretty obvious the 2 best teams in the league now for the Big 12. They had that whole tiebreaker system, but teams didn't play each other. The 2 best teams in that league are Arizona State and BYU. Arizona State, who's in the college football playoff, and BYU, who lost to Arizona State on the road and came up 1 play short. And those are the 2 best teams in the Big 12. That's what that bowl game did for BYU. Is it's kind of everybody now is saying, yeah, it's a toss-up between Arizona State and BYU, but those are clearly the 2 best teams in that league.
Yeah, for sure.
And with everybody coming back next year for BYU, that with a number of folks BYU is coming back, the BYU is going to be ranked in the top 15.
Thank you for watching The Wise Guy.
If you like what you're watching, you can help us out by subscribing and hitting that notification button.